Sean Cunningham from Fox 40, friend of the program and co-host of the Kings Beat podcast, which you can get wherever you get your podcast. James is on that podcast, as well as Brandon Nunez. He had an update on Sasha Vezenkov today. What did you see?
Yeah, so according to Sean, I think this came out yesterday afternoon. While Sasha Vezenkov remains frustrated with his lack of playing time in his first NBA season with the Sacramento Kings, I'm told several sources that there is no truth to the report of his desire to leave the NBA. One source close to Vezenkov called the report "quote unquote" off base, and that he will honor his contract. Sean has also been told the Kings want to keep him, but there's also a market for him, Sacramento or perhaps another team that offers a larger rotational role remains to be seen.
So this sounds to me like he just wants to be traded. Like, he'll honor his contract. If he's in Sacramento, if they don't trade him, he's going to play. He's not going to quit. But this reads to me, and maybe I'm off base, if you're taking the two reports initially, which the first one said that he told the Kings that he's out, and then there was another one that said the Kings told him he's out. But if you take those things and you try and kind of parse them down and tie in what Sean reported today, that sounds to me like the Kings or Sasha went to the Kings, or the Kings went to Sasha. They came together to discuss his role moving forward. And he went, man, if I'm not going to be in the rotation, I want to be somewhere where I'm going to play. And the Kings said, okay, we'll try and facilitate that, but we can't guarantee anything. That's what this sounds like to me.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, just breaking it down, there's a couple of different pieces to this, right? So, the fact that he wants to stay in the NBA, that's no question, because at the end of the year, when we had our exit interviews, Sasha was very clear. He didn't have any regrets. Like, he thought he made the right decision coming to the NBA. And if you want to be, if you're playing in Europe and you want to test yourself and say, am I good enough to play with the best of the best? Then you want to go to the NBA.
Sure.
And the fact that, like, again, I know some people out there would like be shocked by this, but the fact that he played 12.2 minutes per game over 40 something games, like, he played in the NBA. He averaged almost 6 points a game in 12 minutes. He proved that he can score. He proved that he can shoot. He proved he's a better defender than people thought. He's a better rebounder than people thought. Like, there's a lot of things that I think that he looked good doing. But you also are looking at a guy who's considered a superstar in Europe, comes to, Sacramento, and you're at, one of the NBA's outposts that's developing and building and all that stuff. But at the same time, a place that, not a lot of free agents have come to for years and years, for decades. And I get it. Like, you're here, you're lonely. Things didn't go that well. You didn't get the playing time that you thought you might get. And again, if the Kings come back with the run it back mentality again, I don't think things change. If they switch up the roster a bunch, okay. Like, I see a place where he can totally fit. It is very reliant on what else happens here.
Exactly.
It's not, and like, they could trade him and act like he's going to a better place for more rotational minutes, and he can get there and not play and have the same exact experience.
Yeah.
And then he'll go back to Europe next year, and it is what it is. So I'm intrigued to see how this plays out, but I also, that's why we always have to be cautious with reports coming out of Europe, because those two reports were very, very different.
Yeah.
And the one that people say, oh, that's not true, that one very specifically was before the other one. So one is reactionary to the other report.
Yeah.
So it's at least intriguing. And I think we're going to know a whole lot more in like 2 weeks. Like, that's where we're at. We're super close.
Yeah.
Like, this thing is going to be figured out in like 2 weeks, and Sasha Vezenkov will either be part of the Kings or he won't. But it's also possible that the Kings roster will look considerably different, where it might provide a different opportunity for Sasha.
Yeah. I also, I think for Sasha specifically, you mentioned, not having any regrets about coming to the NBA. One, his season was ended by an injury. Like, that sucks.
Yeah.
Like, that stinks for any player, much less a guy in his first year in the NBA at 28 years old. But B, I'm sure he was sitting there on the bench watching the Kings without Malik Monk and without Kevin Huerter over the last couple weeks of the season and going, man, I could really be of service to this team.
Mhm.
But like you just said, the problem is the areas or the ways where these scenarios where he's in the rotation and playing significant effective minutes. Man, there a lot of things have to go right for that to be the case here in Sacramento. And I would understand why he wants to stay in the NBA but wants to go somewhere where, hey, you know what? Maybe they don't have a ton of shooting. Maybe they need a floor spacer. Maybe it's like Orlando or Minnesota or Dallas would love to have another 3-point shooter on the
Yeah,
floor right now. There
maybe.
are so many teams that could use a floor stretcher. And I thought he's an NBA player.
Yeah.
He's not is he starting on a championship team? Yeah, probably not. But I think he's an NBA player. It's just, does his skill set match? We talk about this all the time. It's the correct fit versus the best player.
Mhm.
Dame Lillard's a better player than Drew Holiday, but Drew Holiday was a better fit for the Bucks.
Yep.
Like that's at least for this year. Maybe that changes over the next couple of years, but for this year, I think the Bucks probably would have been better off with Drew Holiday, even though Dame's a better player.
Yeah, I mean, Dame is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Drew Holiday is probably a second, third ballot Hall of Famer. He's
Right.
still a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
At this point,
Yes.
because of the championships
Mhm.
and because of the defensive ability, I think. I mean, he doesn't have a bunch of all-star appearances, and his stats are going to be like what they are. But
He's going to have a couple titles.
he
Bunch
feels
of all
like,
defense.
yeah, one of those players that's going to be right there.
Yeah.
And if not, if he doesn't make it, I mean, I would kind of look at him in the same way I do like Chauncey Billups.
Mhm.
Although I think, again, two-way player, I think Drew's a little bit better.
Yeah.
But Chauncey Billups just made the Hall of Fame, which to me was kind of a surprise, and he made it like especially this early.
Felt like he had to.
I
Like
guess.
he just say like an obligatory. Yeah, we got to get somebody else from that Pistons team.
I guess, but I've never been someone who believes that. So and I want to, like, Sasha did come back and play in the last. He played 7 of the last final 9 games of the season after the catastrophic ankle injury.
Mhm.
But it was just really tough because the Kings had, if anyone remembers the last half of the season, they had no practice time at all. Again, they played on the 31st of March, the 2nd of April, the 4th, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, and the 11th, the 12th, and the
Jeez.
14th. So, like, there's just no way for him to get a rhythm and kind of get himself back into this. Like, look, I think that, again, if this all depends on what the Kings do in the offseason,
Mhm.
how they're able to recreate themselves in the offseason.
Mhm.
I think that having a guy like Sasha that can shoot, that can play, I don't want to say multiple positions. I thought when they put him at small forward, it was a bit of a stretch. But I certainly think that if you're going to run back even the same 4 forwards, you just can't do it. Like, he doesn't make sense in that group. And it's not that he's a bad player. It's that the things that he does they're too similar to the things that the other guys do. And you need someone to protect him, just like you need someone to protect Trey Lyles, and you need someone to protect,
Sure.
Harrison Barnes.
But you can only, but that just to kind of continue that point, you can only have so many guys to protect these other guys.
Yeah,
Like you can only have so many guys who need the perfect setting around them to thrive.
exactly. So having all around players is fine. Having guys that have individual skill sets, like
Mhm.
1 or 2 skill sets,
Mhm.
sometimes you need a few of those to mix in. And that's why, again, I think Keon Ellis had such a huge impact
Yes.
on the team throughout the season. It's like, if I'm going to judge like Kevin Huerter versus Keon Ellis, I think Kevin Huerter is a better NBA basketball player. I think that Keon Ellis, for some reason, fits better. And I don't want to say for some reason. He fits better because he plays defense and he hits 3-point shots.
Mhm.
And Kevin, sure, plays defense. Hits 3-point shots, but he's
Mhm.
not the defender.
Mhm.
And his skill set's different. I mean, he's a better passer than Keon Ellis. But
Mhm.
like, the all-around game of Kevin Huerter is better, but that doesn't always matter. Sometimes you need like specific players that can help support the rest of the team.
Mhm.
And that's where I think the Kings almost have too many jack of all trades, master of none guys
Yep.
on the roster. And that can be an issue.
Yeah, man, you can have Trey Lyles type and Kevin Huerter type, but when you start to like, you limit your flexibility so much when you go, hey, yeah, Sasha Vezenkov can play, but he has to play very specifically this position with these 4 guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then when one of those guys comes out, Sasha also has to come out. And then we're going to put in this guy who has to play with these 4 guys. It's just not sustainable. It's not real life.
Nope.
That's not how it works in the NBA.
Yeah.
So I if Sasha's here, great. If he goes somewhere else, I hope he gets a chance to play. And if he's here, I hope he gets a chance to play.
Yeah.
That's what he came here to do. It's what he wants to do. He wants to play basketball.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, the second part of what Sean put out there, he's been told that the Kings want to keep him, but there's also a market for him. Sacramento or perhaps another team that offers a larger rotational role remains to be seen. Like that piece there, like, yeah, the Kings they don't dislike Sasha Vezenkov. They understand, I think, what we understand. And I think, like Mike Brown understands what we understand, that the just mixture of players can't be the same.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that Sasha needs to be the odd man out, but somebody has to be the odd man out, because you need somebody else that has a different skill set to mix with these guys to change sort of the ingredients here.
And if Sasha was an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old, maybe this conversation's different.
Yeah.
Where, you can have him at the end of your bench. You can play some spot minutes here and there, maybe get some G League minutes where you can really help develop him. So in 2 or 3 years, he's a real contributor, X, Y, and Z. But the fact of the matter is he's almost 30.
Yeah.
And you don't have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of runway there. They need guys who can contribute now. And not having Sasha contribute is just wasting years of what's going to be a relatively short NBA career.
Well, that, and I also think it's wasting his prime here as opposed to his prime in Europe. And that's something that he has to be honest and like consider. This might not be the only situation where he finds himself watching the game of basketball from the bench and wishing that he hadn't come over to the US.
Yeah.
It's reality of the sport, and it's a reality of opportunity and seizing opportunity. And I do think he did seize opportunities when he was given a shot. I think he stepped up in most of the time. And there are games where it's like, oh my gosh, he's just hitting 1 3 after another. There are other times where you can just see like the inconsistency is due to rust, and he's just not getting in a rhythm. He's not getting an opportunity to get comfortable. And that's so hard at the NBA level. If you can't get comfortable, like,
you're done.
Yeah, you are done. It's just that it takes just a little tiny bit off for you to miss a 3 versus make a 3. And feeling comfortable and being in the right spot. That's something that I think, just given more time, he probably could find some more success.
You said a really important thing in there that I want to get to, but I want to get to our caller first. They've been hanging in there very patiently. Don, you're on the Insiders. That's James. I'm Kyle. What's going on? Hey, Don.
Don? This is not Don.
Oh, I'm sorry. Our call screener got it wrong. What's your name?
I'm George.
Oh, George. Sorry about that, George. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, gentlemen. Thank you for taking the call.
Yeah, thanks for calling. What do you got?
So just a couple thoughts. One, I think you guys are completely dead on about Sasha and what his role's going to be. I think the only way he's going to get some real run is if we end up losing Monk and our rotation has to change. And then I could see a spot where he might be able to get a little more. But my real reason for calling was probably about that Trevor Lawrence contract.
Sure.
My thought was, who I think is probably really angry about that is probably Gardner Minshew. Because if you look back on these last few years, Gardner Minshew's numbers are exactly what Trevor Lawrence's numbers are. And he hasn't even started all the time. And he's definitely not getting Trevor Lawrence numbers.
No, definitely not. Thanks for the call, George. We'll be getting to that Trevor Lawrence contract shortly. Really appreciate you calling in.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Hey,
That's hilarious.
I love. We gotta get this call screen fixed. Yeah, we'll get to the Trevor Lawrence contract in a bit. The thing you said about this not being an anti-Sasha thing is something that I think we're just going to reiterate throughout the offseason. I get that people have their favorite players and their favorite guys, and they love this team, particularly the players who are around for the 22-23 season. So it was a magical year for the Kings. And there's going to be an attachment to that team, especially for younger fans. There's going to be like this attachment to that team and that group of players. But if the Kings are going to take this leap, the group of players has to change. There is Fox, there is Sabonis. For now, there's Keegan, and there might be Malik. And beyond that, no disrespect to anybody on the roster. It is not an anti that person, whether it's Trey Lyles or Harrison Barnes or Kevin Huerter or whoever. It's like the Kings need to get better. That's it. That's the bottom line. That's the point of team building. If vibes was what won championships, then great. Run it back again and let's see if the vibes are going to be good. But that's not the case. And we have to figure out ways to make this team better. And that's going to mean it's not all of them. They're not going to have 11 new players next year. But Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, Sasha Vezenkov, Trey Lyles, Keon Ellis, Davion Mitchell, whoever is going to be on the table in some way if the Kings think that moving that player is going to make them discernibly better and get them closer to a championship.
I absolutely agree. And to drive this point home, I would tell you that 2 years ago, the Boston Celtics lost the NBA Finals. Last year, they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals. Yep. Players from last year's team: Malcolm Brogdon, very good NBA player,
gone.
Blake Griffin, who at the end of his career,
allegedly Blake Griffin.
Yes. Marcus Smart,
good player.
Grant Williams,
decent player.
These are players that were on that roster. They were part of the rotation. Those 3 players were part of the 8-man rotation.
Mm-hmm.
Gone.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the reality. If you want to take a step forward, sometimes, even if you're the cream of the crop, you're a team that lost the NBA Finals and then lost the Eastern Conference Finals the next year, to get back to the finals and to win it all, you got to take some risks, and you got to go out and go get a Drew Holiday. And that hurt. Like, they didn't like giving up Marcus Smart. They didn't like giving up Malcolm Brogdon.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of doing business. They went out and got Kristaps Porzingis. Huge gamble, because Kristaps had never been able to, he's a unicorn, but he's never been able to win. That's never amounted to winning. So to go out and get these guys, to take these gambles, that's what it's about. And I mention this all the time. Jason Williams was a point guard on the 1998-99 Sacramento Kings for a couple of years. They had to make the move to Mike Bibby. They had to trade Corliss Williamson for Doug Christie to take the next step.
They had to trade Tyrese Halliburton.
Yes.
That's recent.
That got them into the playoffs for the first time in 16 years.
That move by itself.
People can say, oh, but you gave up. No, I don't care. It changed the direction of your franchise.
Yes.
It changed the entire outcome of every season of your franchise. It's just different. And so, I don't know. This is why we talk about where the Kings are and what they have to do in order to take the next step. And it probably isn't one player. It's probably not 2 players.
Yep.
It's probably not 3 players. And I'm talking rotational pieces.
Yes.
That need to change in order for them to take the next step.